Welcome to Dark Sky Dossier. What you're about to experience are stories from the desert, accounts of ordinary people who witnessed something extraordinary under vast, star-filled skies. From the golden age of flying saucers in the 1940s and 50s to encounters in our own time, these tales share common threads, credible witnesses, remote desert locations, and phenomena that defy easy explanation. You'll meet a science teacher watching the stars in Joshua Tree, long-haul truck drivers on lonely Nevada highways, their CB radios crackling with shared disbelief, a photographer beneath the alabaster dunes of White Sands, a Border Patrol agent scanning the Arizona borderlands, a veteran biker on a memorial ride through the Mojave, an archaeologist working among the ancient ruins of Chaco Canyon, and a rancher in West Texas during that fateful summer of 1947, when the desert revealed something the government would spend decades trying to hide. Each story is different, each witness is unique, but all of them share one thing: a night when the desert showed them something beyond our understanding. Some captured evidence, photographs that remain unclear, fragments that defy analysis, and burn marks that eventually faded. Some had other witnesses who saw the same impossible things. All of them were changed. Most never spoke publicly about what they saw. They carried it quietly, a secret shared only with the stars, the sand, and the endless horizon. Some feared ridicule. Some feared for their lives. Some feared for their careers. Some were told by men in uniforms that national security required their silence. And some simply understood that certain truths are too strange for the world to accept. These are their stories, told as they might tell them, around a campfire, under the stars, in the quiet hours when the desert reveals its secrets. The desert Southwest has always been a place of mystery. The ancient Puebloans watched these skies and carved symbols that we're still trying to understand. The uranium prospectors of the atomic age saw lights they couldn't explain. And still today, in the emptiest corners of Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and California, people look up and see things that shouldn't be there. Whether you believe these accounts or dismiss them, they're part of the desert story now, part of our story. Reminders that the universe is larger and stranger than we can fully comprehend, and that sometimes, in the loneliest places, we encounter something that changes everything we thought we knew. So settle in, get comfortable, let the desert night surround you. This is Dark Sky Dossier. The quiet visitors are watching. The Stargazer, Joshua Tree National Park, California, October 1978. The sound of gravel against wheels is heard as an old Ford truck pulls into Jumbo Rock's campground just as the sun sets. There's dust on the windshield, seen only by the golden hour light across the desert. The man behind the wheel is named David, and he is a 44-year-old high school science teacher. He wears a red flannel shirt and blue jeans. An old black telescope bag can be seen in the bed of his truck. David parks next to a silver Airstream travel trailer. Next to the RV is a sign that says Camp Host. The first thing David notices is the warm light coming from the camp host's window. The camp host emerges to see who pulled into her drive. She's a weathered woman in her 60s, gray hair in a braid, kind eyes, and moves like she's been living in Joshua Tree National Park her whole life. David pays his camping fee and mentions he's here to photograph planet Mars tonight. The old hippie camp host nods at him, says, "It's a good night for it. No moon, and the sky is dark as black." The camp host offers to sell David a quart of firewood and warn him the desert gets cold at night, even in October. David purchases the firewood, and as he turns to load the wood into the back of his pickup truck, the old camp host says, "If you see anything strange up there, you wouldn't be the first." David laughs at the comment, as he believes she's talking about meteors or satellites. She smiles at him as she watches him drive towards his campsite. David's campsite is isolated, Site 47 they call it, and is tucked between massive boulder formations. The nearest campsite is about 15 minutes away. He can barely see their campfire glow in the distance. David sets up his Coleman dome tent. He's done this the same way hundreds of times. He builds a small campfire and gets his coffee percolating. The sun in the desert has fully set now. The twilight is deepening to purple, and the first set of stars is starting to appear. As the temperature starts to drop, David pulls on a wool sweater. He unpacks his old telescope, a vintage Celestron 8-inch reflector, his pride and joy. The telescope is set up on a sturdy tripod, pointed east where Mars will rise. Then David sets up his folding table, where he arranges his camera, notebooks, and star charts. David is completely content as he pours his coffee, sits in his camp chair, and waits for full darkness. As David's watch shows 8 p.m., the Milky Way looks breathtaking, stretching across the sky like a river of light. David has never seen it this clear. Even on the same trips to this national park, Mars becomes visible right on schedule, a bright reddish orange on the horizon. David knows it's time to start his photography routine. He adjusts the focus on his Canon AE1 camera, calculating the exposure times. He takes several test shots, making notes in his logbook by flashlight. The desert is absolutely silent except for the occasional wind over rocks. No aircraft sounds, no traffic, and no voices from distant campsites. Just the cracking of his campfire and the vast, peaceful dark. Around 10 p.m., David is completely absorbed in his work, his eyes pressed to his telescope. This is why he enjoys the Joshua trees. Just pure, undisturbed, and quiet astronomy. David is tracking Mars, adjusting for Earth's rotation, when something enters his field of view. At first, he thinks it's a satellite, as light moves across the frame. But satellites are different. They move in straight lines and predictable paths. This light is drifting, almost like it's hovering. As he pulls back from the eyepiece, David finds himself confused. He looks up with his naked eyes to reorient himself. There are about 30 degrees above the horizon to the south. He sees a light that wasn't there 10 minutes ago. The light is orange in color, steady glowing, unlike an aircraft. He watches it for a minute. The light doesn't move. It stays right in place. David grabs his binoculars and focuses on the strange light. He can see that it's not a point source. It's a sphere of light. There are no wings, no fuselage, and no navigation light that is commonly seen on a commercial aircraft. He lowers his binoculars and scans the surrounding sky. As he catches his breath, he notices 2 more lights that are bright and the same color as the other. These lights form a perfect triangular pattern about a mile over the rock formation. All 3 are hovering, about the same altitude, about 1,000 feet up. He finds it strange that he hears no sounds of an engine. His mind starts to race. What is the explanation? Are these flares? Is this a military exercise? As he holds his binoculars, he starts to realize that his hands are shaking. The formation begins to move in a slow fashion, never falling out of line. They are moving towards David's position, following the contours of the desert floor. He stands frozen next to his telescope, unable to look away. The lights start to drift closer, maybe half a mile. David can see them more clearly now, spherical, glowing from within. The edges are slightly fuzzy. They pulse gently, almost like they are breathing. The color shifts from orange to almost copper in color. The strange thing is, there's still no sound. This is more upsetting than if they had roared. As his campfire pops loudly, David jumps, his heart beating faster than the first drop on a roller coaster. The objects continue their steady, almost impossible approach. The formation passes directly over the campsite, maybe 500 feet above his head. David tilts his head back, mouth open, completely awestruck. He can now see the underside of each sphere, smooth, featureless, with no visible means of propulsion. The copper light bathes his campsite, tent, and equipment in a warm glow. He starts to notice something else strange. The air temperature has dropped suddenly. His breath is visible as puffs of vapor, even as it wasn't that cold a minute ago. The hair on his arm starts to stand up, the same static electricity that is felt before a thunderstorm. The lights begin shifting in color as they pass, orange to white to pale green and back again. The green light is almost hypnotic in nature, beautiful in a way that makes his chest ache. Then, just as they appeared, they accelerate towards the northern horizon. The acceleration is instantaneous. No gradual speed up, just 0 to gone. David blinks, and they are already miles away, streaking towards the mountains. No sonic boom, no heat wash, no wind. All signs of physics are ignored. Within seconds, all he notices are just dots on the horizon. Then the lights shoot straight up, all three simultaneously, disappearing into the stars. The entire encounter lasted maybe 5 minutes or less. David just stands there, neck starting to hurt from the uncomfortable position, wondering if any of this was real. The normal light starts to return, the campfire, the stars, and the distant lights of the other camps. The temperature climbs back to normal desert cold. Everything feels different now, somehow changed. David isn't able to sleep that night. He sits alone by his dying campfire until dawn. He reviews his camera's film counter. He had never thought to take any photos. He was too fixated on the craft. He kicks himself for not documenting it. The astronomer in him becomes frustrated. An inner conflict within him arises. Maybe something is not meant for the evidence. Maybe the most important part was the experience. He watches the sky obsessively until sunrise, hoping for just one more glimpse. The other campers start becoming alive at dawn, and the sounds of tent zippers and coffee percolators echo in the mountains. David starts to wonder if anyone else saw what he saw, but he can't bring himself to go around and ask anyone. He packs up his gear methodically, hands still slightly trembling from the experience. He loads the truck, takes one last look at the desert sky and innocent daylight blue. He knows he may never see this campsite host again. They frequently change campsites throughout the country. He drives back towards her RV. The camp host is watering her hanging plants when David pulls up. She looks at him over her shoulder, already knowing what he saw somehow. "You get your Mars photos, young man?" she asks, as something strange is felt in her voice. David hesitates, then says quietly, "I saw something." She nods, not surprised, and she sets down the watering can. "3 lights? A triangle formation?" she asks. David's jaw drops. "How did you?" She smiles gently. "You're the 5th person this month. They like this place." She offers him a cup of coffee from her thermos. "Drive safely, teacher. Your students are lucky to have someone who still looks up." David drives home to Los Angeles, already rehearsing how to tell his wife, knowing she'll never fully believe him. He is unable to stop thinking about those blue-green lights and what they might mean. The long-haul trucker. Highway 95, Southern Nevada, June 1985. Ray Kowalski's solid Raven black Peterbilt 359 rumbles into the Desert Star truck stop at 2:17 a.m. Air brakes hissing into the darkness. A truck driver by trade, he's been on the road since Bakersfield, hauling electronics to Salt Lake City. His DOT logbook says he's maxed out of hours. The truck stop is small, with just 6 diesel pumps, an old diner, and a cinder block bathroom building with a flickering fluorescent light. Only 2 other trucks are in the lot, both dark and silent, and their drivers are already asleep in their cabs. Ray pulls into pump 4, kills the engine, and stretches his back as he climbs down the truck steps. A young kid is working the night shift, maybe 20 years old, skinny, wearing a faded Def Leppard t-shirt. He comes out to help pump the diesel. "Hell, it's been quiet out here tonight," Ray says, fishing out his company card. The kid nods, yawning. "Dead as hell out here, sir." "You staying or just fueling up?" Ray looks up and replies to the kid, "I gotta catch up on some sleep. The old DOT says I'm done for 4 hours." The kid hands back the fuel card. Well, sir, the lot here is all yours. Aside from those other drivers passed out, no one has been through here in the last couple of hours. The kid points at the empty desert, stretching for miles in all directions. Ray parks down at the far end of the lot, backing his big rig in so that his cab faces the desert and Highway 95 going northbound. Ray has slept in this sleeper cab more nights in his own bed back home over the past 15 years. He opens the curtain between the driver's seat and the small sleeping area. This is his home away from home. Ray proceeds to make instant coffee on his 12-volt hot plate. Muscle memory kicks in from 1,000 lonely nights. Ray served as a door gunner in the 1st Cavalry Division back in Nam. Vietnam taught him how to be able to sleep anywhere, but also taught him situational awareness and to never fully relax. He's always aware, always scanning. He's too wired to sleep just yet, so he settles in the driver's seat with his coffee and his Lucchese snakeskin pointed-toe cowboy boots on the dash. His Cobra 29 LTD CB radio crackles with low static. Channel 19 out of 40 is the trucker's lifeline. Occasional bursts of chatter come in from somewhere far away, voices fading in and out. Throughout the windshield, the desert is black, except for sparse stars in the glow from the truck stop behind him. Highway 95 cuts through nothing. 2 towns, no traffic, just the empty Nevada wasteland for miles. Ray has been running this route, California to Utah, twice a week for 3 years now. He knows every mile marker, every rest stop, and every cop speed trap. Highway 95 at night is one of the loneliest stretches in America, which is exactly how he likes it. No drama, no traffic, just Ray, the road, and the engine's steady rumble. He sips his coffee as a jackrabbit darts across the highway in the view of his Peterbilt's headlights. The only sound is the tick of the diesel engine cooling and the hum of the truck stop generator. The CB radio is quiet now, except for static wash. He's thinking about his daughter Scarlett's birthday next week, and what to buy her when he gets home. 11 years old now, she's growing up too fast while he's on the road. Ray looks down at his Casio G-Shock watch. 2:45 a.m. the watch says. He figures he'll try and sleep in the next 20 minutes. A brief movement catches his eye. The light on the desert horizon, maybe 5 miles out. At first, Ray thinks it's another truck, coming south on 95, headlights in the distance. But oddly enough, the light isn't even on the highway. It's hovering above the desert floor, off to the east. The light isn't moving like a vehicle would. It's not following any road. Ray leans forward, squinting through his dusty windshield. The light is a bright white, like a searchlight pointing straight up into the sky. Could this be a UH-1 Huey, like the ones back in Nam? Maybe it's a medevac or the Border Patrol. But there's no sound, no rotor thump carrying across the empty desert. The light begins drifting slowly northward, parallel to the highway, but out in the scrubland. Ray sets down his coffee, sits up straighter, watching intently now. The CB radio crackles to life. Breaker 19, any of you gear jammers on 95 seeing this? Ray grabs his mic. This is Desert Rat 3. I got a visual on the east side. What's your 20? Another voice comes in. This is Dust Devil 1, northbound at mile marker 87. I got a light out here not moving right. A third trucker comes in. This is Rattlesnake 5. I'm southbound. I got it here too. What the hell is this thing? The first trucker comes back on the radio. Ain't no helicopter. It's too bright, and there's no sound. Ray keys the mic. Desert Rat 3 here. I'm parked watching it. Thing's drifting north, maybe 3 miles out. Getting closer to the highway, Dust Devil 1 says. Ray's training kicks in. He observes, assesses the situation without panic. He reaches for his mag-light flashlight, then stops. What is he going to do with a flashlight? The light suddenly intensifies, like someone turned up the dimmer switch to a maximum setting. Now the light isn't just white. It's blue and orange, pulsing around the edges. The CB radio erupts in static, painful screeching feedback. Ray yanks the volume down, but the static continues, distorted. His truck's dashboard lights start flickering, gauges start jumping, and needles start to switch. The digital clock on his radio starts to blink. 000.
You guys still here?
He calls into the CB, but there's only white noise over the radio. The light is closer now, much closer, maybe a mile out and moving faster. The light isn't drifting anymore. It's moving with a purpose, heading directly towards the highway. Ray's heart rate kicks up, and that old combat alertness starts to flood his system. Without warning, the light pivots, and Ray's entire cab is covered in a brilliant white illumination. He throws his arm up to shield his eyes, the brightness overwhelming in his eyes, even through his eyelids. Heat is put through the windshield like someone opened an oven door. The metal dash of the Peterbilt is warm to the touch, and his coffee starts to steam harder. Every metal surface in the cab is alive with static electricity. He can hear it crackling, feeling it on his skin. The light is so bright that he can see the individual stitches on the steering wheel cover. His ears pop from the pressure change, like a rapid altitude shift. For 30 seconds, maybe less, maybe more, time feels distorted. He's completely blind. All he sees is a burning white light. Then as suddenly as it came, the light snaps off. Ray blinks frantically. Purple after images dancing across his vision as his hand trembles on the wheel. As his vision clears, he sees the light shooting straight up into the sky, not climbing like an aircraft, just gone, from the ground level to the upper atmosphere in the blink of a second. No acceleration curve, no visible propulsion, just vertical departure. Within 3 seconds, it's a pinpoint star, then it's completely gone. The CB radio suddenly comes back to life.
Good Lord, is everyone okay?
The other drivers chime in.
Hit me too. Did you see that? My whole truck lit up.
Rattlesnake 5 says.
I had to pull over. Couldn't see the damn road.
Ray keys up the mic.
Desert Rat 3 here. I'm okay. What the hell was that?
Silence comes over the radio for a moment. Then,
damned if I know, brother. Damned if I know.
His dashboard returns to normal. The clock resets itself. Gauges stabilize, and everything works again. For the next hour, Ray and the other truckers stay on Channel 19. Nobody is willing to sign off. They compare what they saw, the details, and discover they all saw the same thing in the same sequence. Dust Devil 1 pulls into the Desert Star truck stop and park next to Ray. They get out and stand in the parking lot with Rattlesnake 5, who's also turned around. 3 men in their 30s and 40s, hardened road veterans, try to make sense of the event. Military? Dust Devil 1 says. Testing something out in Nellis or Tonopah? Ray shakes his head. I've seen military aircraft, and that wasn't anything we got. The night shift kid comes out smoking a cigarette. You guys see it too? Happens about once a month here. The truckers stare at him. He shrugs. Nobody ever believes me. They stand there in silence, watching the sky until the eastern horizon starts turning gray with pre-dawn light. By 6 a.m., the truckers are ready to roll. They load up on fuel to keep on schedule. They all shake hands, exchange CB handles, but nobody writes anything down. They make an unspoken agreement. This night stays between them, only between the people who were there. Ray fires up the Peterbilt. The engine roars to life normally. He waves to the kid at the pump, who gives him a knowing nod. Ray pulls back into Highway 95 North. As the morning sun climbs behind him, the CB crackles to life.
Safe travels, Desert Rat 3. Keep your eyes on the sky.
Ray answers with a smile.
Roger that, Rattlesnake 5. You too.
He'll make his delivery in Salt Lake City, call his daughter like always, and keep moving. But every time Ray runs 95 at night, he finds himself watching that eastern horizon, wondering if tonight will be the night they come back, hoping they do. The Photographer. White Sands National Monument, New Mexico, March 2012. Marcus Chin pulls his dusty Toyota Tacoma into the backcountry camping permit office at White Sands just as the sun begins to descend toward the western mountains. He's 31 years old and a professional landscape photographer from Las Cruces. He uses a Canon EOS 5D and a backpack filled with Canon L lenses stored in his back seat. Tonight is a special night, a supermoon, as they call it, and he's been waiting to photograph this event for months. The permit office is small, adobe-style building with turquoise trim and desert willow trees, providing sparse shade. Inside, a ranger sits behind the counter. A native woman, maybe in her early 50s, covered in silver and turquoise jewelry. Her name tag says Maria Benali. Marcus fills out the overnight camping permit, explaining he wants to photograph the moon rise over the gypsum dunes. Ranger Benali reviews the permit slowly, thoughtfully, then looks up at Marcus with dark, knowing eyes. "Beautiful night for us," she says. "Crystal clear. Full moon makes the dunes glow like snow." She stamps the permit, slides it across the counter, then adds almost casually, "If you see lights that move in ways the moon doesn't, well, just document what you see." Marcus laughs, nervously thinking the ranger is joking about UFOs, grabs his permit, and heads for the trailhead. The designated hiking area is 2 miles into the dune field, accessed by a marked trail. Marcus shoulders his heavy pack, consisting of his tent, sleeping bag, camera gear, and tripod, and starts walking as the shadow lengthens. White Sands is otherworldly, 275 square miles of pure white gypsum crystal dunes, looking more like Antarctica than New Mexico. The sand is cool and soft under his hiking boots, squeaking slightly with each step. He passes families packing up from his day visits, kids laughing as they slide down dunes on plastic sleds. By the time he reaches his permitted camping zone, he's alone, just him and the endless landscape. He sets up his tent and campfire between 2 large dunes, sheltered from the wind. The sun sets fast in the desert. The sky turns orange, then pink, then deep purple. He unpacks his camera gear methodically, the Canon Mark II, 3 lenses, interval meter, and spare batteries. He sets his main tripod facing east, where the moon will rise, checking and rechecking his focus. Marcus has been a professional photographer for 8 years, shooting for National Geographic, Outside Magazine, and gallery exhibitions. He's camped alone in remote locations dozens of times. The Montana backcountry, Utah canyonlands, and the Alaska wilderness. The solitude doesn't bother him much. He feels it's where he works best. He eats a quick dinner of trail mix and beef jerky and drinks water from his Camelback. He watches the light fade. Stars begin to appear, thousands of them. No light pollution for 50 miles in any direction. The temperature drops quickly once the sun is gone. March nights in the desert still get down in the 40s. He pulls up a fleece jacket and settles into his camping chair. His watch says 7:45 p.m. and the moon should rise around 8:30. He takes a couple of test shots of the stars, checking his exposure settings and making notes in his field journal. Complete silence except for distant coyote calls and the whisper of the wind over the dunes. The moon rises exactly on schedule, enormous and orange on the horizon. The supermoon is living up to its name. Marcus starts shooting immediately, with backlit exposures and different focal lengths. The gypsum dunes glow in the moonlight like they are lit from within, surreal and beautiful. He's completely absorbed in his work, checking the LCD screen and adjusting the composition. Around 10 p.m., he reviews his shots and notices something odd in several frames. He finds small lights in the background, above the dunes, and at first, he assumes they are stars. But after looking at the sequence, the lights are moving, shifting position frame to frame. He lowers the camera to scan the horizon with his eyes. About a quarter mile away, 4 lights hover, maybe 100 feet above the dunes, reddish orange like embers of fire, arranged in a loose diamond pattern. Marcus's first thought is drones, which had become more common in the year 2012, but there's no sound, no buzzing of rotors, nothing at all. And then he starts to think, the lights are too bright, too steady to be standalone drone LEDs. He switches his camera to video mode, zooms in with his telephoto lens. Through the viewfinder, he can see the lights more clearly. Spheres of reddish light, pulsing more gently, not solid objects with lights attached. The light itself seems to be the object. The formation drifts slowly southward, maintaining perfect spacing. He films for 2 minutes straight, his hands surprisingly steady. Despite his racing heart, the lights move with an eerie fluidity, like jellyfish underwater, but in the air. Then one of them separates from the formation and drifts closer to his position. Marcus stops filming, pulls back from the camera, and starts to watch with his own eyes. The single light is maybe 200 yards away, hovering about 50 feet above a nearby dune. It's larger up close, maybe 6 feet in diameter, the sphere of orange and red luminescence. The light pulsates rhythmically, like breathing, almost as if it's something that's alive. He can see it reflected on the white sands below, casting a warm glow across the rippled surface. His camera's autofocus starts hunting, confused by the unusual light source. He switches to manual focus, keeps filming, and his professional instinct overrides his nervousness. The sphere hovers there for maybe 90 seconds, as if the object is observing him. Marcus realizes he's holding his breath, so he forces himself to breathe normally. Then the light suddenly starts to brighten, not gradually, with an instant intensification. The sphere flares brilliantly white, bright enough that Marcus instinctively squints. His camera exposure compensation goes haywire, and the image looks blown out on the LCD screen. The white light holds for maybe 3 seconds. Then the sphere shoots straight up, not climbing, just instant vertical acceleration. Ground level to upper atmosphere. Gone in literally 1 second, leaving only a faint after image in his vision. The other 3 lights in the formation follow immediately, at the same trajectory and the same impossible speed. 4 streaks of light shoot into the stars and then disappear. Marcus stands there, camera still recording, capturing an empty sky now. His hands are trembling as he stops recording, and he checks the footage on his playback. It's there, grainy in the darkness, but there, the movement followed by the departure. He just sits outside his tent until dawn. His camera stays steady as he just watches. He reviews the footage of the video obsessively, zooming in frame by frame on his camera screen. The objects are visible but unclear. Any skeptic would agree that they could be anything. Birds catching the moonlight? Chinese lanterns? Flares? None of these explanations fit the movement, but he knows what he saw with his own eyes, separate from what the camera captured. The pulsing, the fluidity, the instant acceleration. Nothing human-made moves like that. He takes more photos of the stars throughout the night, going through the motions, but his heart isn't in it anymore. The moon sets around 3 a.m., the dunes turning grainy starlight. Dawn comes slowly, and the gypsum sands turn pink, then white again in the morning sun. He packs up methodically, double-checking that he has all of his memory cards for evidence. The 2-mile hike back to the trailhead feels longer in the morning light. Marcus keeps looking over his shoulder, scanning the sky, but it's empty and blue now. He passes an early morning family group hiking in. Parents, 2 kids, excited for a day in the dunes. He starts to warn them, but stops himself. What would he even say? They wave cheerfully, and he waves back and keeps walking. His camera bag feels even heavier now, loaded with more than just equipment. He's already thinking about who to show the footage to. Who would even believe him? Not the mainstream photography community. They would most certainly dismiss him. Maybe MUFON? Maybe NUFORC? Someone who takes these things seriously? He reaches the parking lot around 8 a.m., and his Tacoma is sitting alone in the early sun. Marcus stops at the permit office to return his backcountry tag, a required checkout procedure. Ranger Benali is there again, watering the desert willows with the same turquoise jewelry catching the morning light. She looks up as Marcus approaches, and something passes across her face. "How was the moon shot?" the ranger asks. But there is weight to the question. Marcus hesitates, then says quietly, "I saw lights, 4 of them, moving in ways that weren't normal." Ranger Benali sets down the watering can and nods slowly, no surprise in her expression. "The dunes have been sacred to my people for generations. The lights have been on longer than that," Marcus nods. "On video, not great quality, but it's there." The ranger smiles gently. "That's good. Some things need to be documented, even if no one believes what's documented. Drive safe, photographer. Your eyes were open last night." Marcus drives back to Las Cruces. Video files backed up 3 times already, knowing his career just took a turn he never expected, and that every night from now on, he'll be watching the skies, camera ready, wanting to see if the lights return. The Border Patrol agent, Southern Arizona border region, August 2015. Michael Reyes parks his personal Ford F-150 in a familiar spot off County Road 286, about 15 miles north of the Mexican border in the Altar Valley. He's 42, a U.S. Border Patrol agent for almost 18 years, spending his 2 rare days off doing what he loves, camping. This is a solo trip in the Sonoran Desert. He knows this area better than his own backyard. This isn't an official campground, just a dispersed hunters camp on BLM land. There's enough room in this spot for just a truck and a tent. He pulls in around 5 p.m. on Friday in August. The heat is still brutal at 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and the monsoon clouds are building from the south. He climbs out of his Ford wearing faded Levi's, a Carhartt work shirt, and tan Danner tactical boots. This is an off-duty uniform for a man who lives in the borderlands. There's no camp host here, no permit office, just Michael, the creosote bushes, and the distant Babo Kavari Peak, rising purple against the sky. He's passed maybe 3 or 4 vehicles in the last hour on the dirt road coming in, ranchers headed home, and maybe another camper looking to disappear. Michael sets up his camp with practiced efficiency, a weathered wall tent, a Coleman camp stove, and a folding chair facing south towards the border. This is his reset, his decompression from the job after 3 days of catching border crossers, drug mules, and cartel scouts. Out here, he's just Michael, a Marine veteran from Iraq who served in Fallujah. He knows things about the desert most people will never see. Michael has been patrolling this sector since 2007. He knows every wash, every mountain range, and every smuggling route. More importantly, he knows every aircraft that flies the airspace. Border Patrol UH-60 Blackhawks, CBP drones, DEA planes, and F-16s from the Air National Guard outside of Tucson. He can identify them by their sound alone, the wab of rotor blades, the whine of Predator drones, and the roar of jets on training runs. He builds his campfire as the sun drops toward the Baba Kavari Mountains, turning the sky Arizona gold. Michael makes his coffee in a battered percolator and starts to heat canned chili on his camp stove. His personal scanner, a radio that's not government issued, sits on his tailgate. He monitors the Border Patrol out of habit. The radio starts to crackle.
Sensor hit. Sasabi area. Group of 8, northbound. Air unit responding.
Michael is off duty, so it's not his problem tonight, but old habits die hard. He sits in his camping chair, sips his coffee, and watches the sky change colors as it does every desert evening. The temperature finally starts to drop below 100. That blessed relief when the sun goes down in August. By 9 p.m., full darkness has settled, the monsoon clouds obscuring about half the stars. Michael keeps his fire small, an old Border Patrol instinct. Don't give away your position. Not that he's worried out here. His truck is locked, his Beretta M9 within reach, and he knows how to handle himself. The desert night becomes alive with sounds, coyotes yipping in the distance, and an owl calling from a cigarro. The scanner chatter continues.
Units repositioning. Helicopter heading back to base.
It's a quiet night on the line. He's thinking about his daughter's 14th birthday next month. The party is being planned by his wife. Since he spends so much time on the job, his body is starting to feel like it's time for retirement, but his VA disability just isn't enough to live on. Maybe he'll move to Tucson, get off the line, and take a supervisor position with better hours. He refills his coffee, adds a splash of Maker's Mark, and fires up a Padron 1924 cigar, the privileges of being off duty. As he leans back in his chair, he starts to study the stars between the clouds, completely at peace. Movement starts to catch his trained eye. Lights to the southwest, low on the horizon, maybe 5 miles out. His first thought is automatic. Aircraft and a border area need to be identified. He sees 3 lights in a triangular formation, moving slowly northeast, parallel to the border. This isn't a helicopter. The light pattern is wrong. No red-green navigation lights, no strobes. This isn't a predator drone. Those have a simple bright spotlight. His first thought is automatic. Aircraft in the border area. Movement starts to catch his trained eye. Lights to the southwest, low on the horizon, maybe 5 miles out. His first thought is automatic. Aircraft in the border area need to be identified. He sees 3 lights in a triangular formation, moving slowly northeast parallel to the border. This isn't a helicopter. The light pattern is wrong. No red-green navigation lights, no strobes. This isn't a predator drone. Those have a single bright spotlight when they're running border surveillance. Not an F-16, way too slow. And jets don't fly in tight formations. That low at night. Michael sets down his coffee, stands up, and years of training kicks in. Observe, identify, and assess the situation. He grabs his Nikon ProStaff 7S 10x42 binoculars, the same ones he uses on patrol. He focuses on the formation. 3 white lights, steady, no blinking, moving at maybe 40 miles per hour. Too slow for any aircraft, he knows. Too organized for civilian drones. Wrong profile for anything in his mental database. The formation turns, banking smoothly, now headed directly toward his position. Michael's pulse quickens, but his mind stays analytical. This is what he's trained for. He assesses the threat calmly. Through the binoculars, he can only see the lights more clearly now, intense white, almost luminous. They're maintaining perfect geometric spacing, like they're locked on visible rails. No sound yet, and at least 3 miles out. He should be hearing something if they are aircraft. He's worked with every agency on the border. CBP, DEA, FBI, and even shadow 3-letter agencies he's not supposed to know about. This doesn't match anything he's ever seen in official operations. The formation passes overhead, maybe 1,000 feet. He can judge the altitude from years of watching aircraft, still completely silent, no engine noise, no rotor wash, nothing at all but the desert. Just 3 brilliant lights gliding through the night sky with impossible silence. As the formation passes directly overhead, Michael gets his first clear look at the actual structure. It's not 3 separate objects. It's one aircraft, triangular with lights at each point, dark gray or black. It's hard to tell against the night sky, but he can see it blocking stars as it moves. It's massive. He estimates 50 to 60 feet per side, bigger than a Black Hawk, smaller than a C-130. The surface is completely smooth, no visible panels, no seams, no markings. Moving at a steady speed, maybe 40 knots, impossibly slow for something that size to stay airborne. Still, he hears no sound, and this close, he should be hearing engines, turbines, or something. The silence is more disturbing than if it had roared overhead. His radio scanner is silent too. No chatter, no alerts, no scrambled aircraft. Whatever this is, it's not triggering an official response, which means either they don't see it or they're choosing not to react. Michael chooses to follow it in his binoculars. As it continues northeast toward the Tohono O'odham Reservation, the craft maintains a slow, steady pace. Altitude unchanging, trajectory unwavering. He's tracking it like he'd track a smuggler's vehicle, noting speed, direction, and landmarks. It passes over a distant ranch house. He knows the property, the Mendoza place. Their lights are on. He wonders if they're seeing it too, or if they're inside watching TV. The craft is about 3 miles away now, still clearly visible against the dark sky. Then it does something that makes Michael's breath catch, not slowing down gradually, just an instant stop, hovering motionless in midair. Hovers for maybe 20 seconds, as if considering something, deciding what to do next. Then it shoots straight up with incredible speed, disappearing into monsoon clouds in seconds. Michael lowers his binoculars, heart hammering, mind trying to race through the explanations. Was it a military test? That can't be true, because he knows all the test ranges. The Barry Goldwater range is west of here, and they don't test over civilian areas. Foreign drone? Cartel surveillance? Nothing cartels have moved like that. And they're not that sophisticated. Black budget program? Maybe. But why fly it openly over the border where everyone could see it? He grabs his phone, checks for reception, and 1 bar should be enough. He thinks about calling the station, but stops himself. What would he say? I saw a UFO? He would be the joke of the sector. Instead, he checks the time. 21:47. And he logs the time mentally. August 4th, 2015, approximately 9:40. He checks the scanner, still normal chatter, nothing about the unidentified aircraft. He sits back down, hands slightly shaken, and continues to stare at the clouds where he saw it. Michael doesn't sleep that night. He sits by the fire, binoculars ready, watching the sky. Years of border patrol have taught him patience, how to watch and how to wait. He's seen a lot on the border: smugglers, migrants, cartel violence, and human tragedy. Nothing has ever made him question reality like this. Around 2 a.m., the monsoon clouds begin to break up, and he can clearly start to see stars emerge. He stays up watching until dawn, looking for any sign of the aircraft returning. All he sees are normal things: satellites crossing, a shooting star, and the ISS making its steady arc. Nothing as he saw earlier. Dawn comes, with its unusual desert suddenness. Dark to gray blazing gold in minutes. Michael makes a fresh coffee, sits watching the Baba Kovari peak, catching the first light, and trying to process what he witnessed. By 7 a.m., Michael packs up his camp with the same efficiency that he set it up. He loads the truck, kicks dirt over his fire pit, and erases all evidence of his presence. He drives back down County Road 286, dust plume rising behind him. He passes a Border Patrol unit coming the other way, his colleague Rodriguez, who waves. Michael waves back and wonders if he should stop and say something, but decides against it. At home in 3 Points by 9 a.m., his wife Maria asks him how the camping went. Quiet, he tells her. Peaceful. Saw some interesting lights in the sky. She smiles, goes back for her coffee, and doesn't press him for details. Monday morning, he's back on patrol, scanning the desert he knows so well. But now he scans the sky differently, too. And every time he hears an agent joke about little green men or UFOs on the radio, he stays quiet because he knows some things you see on the border you keep to yourself, and that the desert holds secrets even a longtime agent doesn't have the clearance to explain. The Motorcycle Traveler, Mojave Desert, California, July 2019. Jake Wrench Sullivan pulls his blacked out 2018 Harley Street Bob off Highway 95 just as the sun drops on the old mountains. The heat shimmer finally dying on the asphalt. He's 45 and a U.S. Army veteran, Tora Bora, 1% patch holder for the past 12 years, and a diesel mechanic who owns a small shop in Bakersfield. This is a solo memorial ride for his fallen brother Cisco, killed 3 months ago in a collision with a pickup truck outside Needles. The club does it this way. Ride alone, think about your brother, pour one out into the stars. He's been riding since dawn, 300 miles of desert highway, and his back is telling him 45 isn't 25 anymore. He pulls onto a dirt access road, BLM land, no people, just a creosote and Joshua tree stretching to the horizon. He kills the engine at sudden silence after hours of a V-twin rumble, and the Desert Quest hits him like a wall. Jake kicks the stand down, climbs off stiff-legged, pulls off his half-helmet and his worn leather vest with the patches on his back. No campground here, no permit office, just him and the Mojave and the memories of Cisco riding behind him for 300 miles. This is a church for men like Jake, open sky, open road, and the brotherhood that never dies. Jake unwraps his falsa blanket bedroll and a small duffel bag from the Street Bob Sissy Bar. He moves with the efficiency of someone who's camped rough before. The U.S. Army taught him how to sleep anywhere, and Tora Bora's frozen mountains and blown-out buildings in Jalalabad and on rocky Afghan ridges. The Mojave heat is nothing compared to the Hindu Kush, and he thinks to himself, out here no one is trying to kill him. He spreads his bedroll on a flat ground between two Joshua trees and checks for scorpions out of habit. Jake builds a small fire ring with rocks. He gathers branches, gets a fire going as the sky turns purple. His tattoos show a faded 10th Mountain Division on his forearm, his club insignia on his left, and the word infidel across his shoulder blades. He opens his saddlebag, pulls out a can of Campbell's beef stew and a bottle of Jack Daniels. He sets the stew on the fire's edge to heat and pours 3 fingers of sour mash into the cup. First pour is for Cisco. He dumps it on the ground beside the fire and watches it soak into the sand. Miss you, brother, he says to an empty desert, then pours another cup for himself. By 9 p.m., full darkness has settled. Temperature has finally dropped from brutal to merely hot. Jake sits on his bedroll, back against the Joshua tree, as he eats warm stew from the can. The whiskey helps, always does. Takes the edge off the memories, the nightmares, and the PTSD that never quite went away. He's been out of the Army since 2003, but Tora Bora still visits him most nights. The sound of H-64 Delta Apaches, the smell of cordite, and the cold so extreme it hurt to breathe. The club have saved him when the VA couldn't. It gave him purpose, brotherhood, and something to belong to after the Army. And Cisco has been his sponsor, the one who brought him in as a prospect, taught him the code. They became closer than blood. Now Cisco's ashes are scattered somewhere in the desert between here and Barstow, and Jake's riding alone. He finishes his stew, tosses the can in his saddlebag to pack out, and refills his cup of whiskey. The stars are coming out thick, no moon tonight, and the Milky Way is visible like a river of light overhead. Jake wakes up around midnight. He's not sure what woke him, just that old combat sense that something's different. He's learned over the years to trust his instinct, which kept him alive in the mountains when the Taliban were moving in the dark. He sits up in his bedroll as his hand instinctively goes for his Colt 1911 government. He keeps in his saddlebag, but he stops himself. The fire has burned down to coals, giving just enough light to see the street bob. The desert is completely silent. No coyotes, no wind, not even insects. What's wrong? The desert is never this quiet. Then he notices the light, a soft blue and white glow illuminating the Joshua trees to the north. He knows it's not his fire, not the moonlight. It's something else entirely. He stands up slowly, barefoot on the warm sand, eyes scanning like he's clearing a compound, and that's when he sees them. 3 lights in a perfect formation, maybe a quarter mile out, hovering about 200 feet up. Jake's combat training kicks in immediately. Identify the threat, assess the capabilities, and determine the intent. These aren't helicopters. He knows the sound of rotors. He spent years listening for Soviet-era Hinds and American longbows. These are not drones. Wrong light pattern. And they're too large. Predators and Reapers don't move like this. Not jets. Way too slow. Hovering motionless in a way nothing with wings should be able to. Each light is blue and white, intense but not blinding. Pulsing gently, like someone breathing. They maintain perfect geometric spacing, military precision, but not any military he's ever worked with. He knows every aircraft the U.S. military flies, saw them all in Afghanistan, from UH-60 Blackhawks to B-52s. This one ain't ours, he thinks. And it sure as hell isn't the Taliban's. The formation begins drifting slowly east, silent as ghosts, maintaining a perfect shape. Jake watches his adrenaline start to pump, and that old combat alertness starts to flood his system. The formation turns, smooth as oil, now moving directly toward his camp. Jake's heart rate kicks up, but he stays still. He knows that movement draws attention. Every good soldier knows that. They're closer now, maybe 500 feet out, and he can see they're not just lights at each corner point. Big, he estimates, 40 feet per side, about the size of a shipping container, moving maybe 20 miles per hour, and possibly slow for something that large to be continually airborne. still completely silent. No engine noise, no exhaust, no rotor wash disturbing the desert air. The silence is what gets him. In Tora Bora, you heard everything coming, even helicopters miles away. This is different physics, different rules, like watching something that shouldn't exist. The formation passes overhead at maybe 300 feet, close enough he could hit it with a rifle if he needed to. As the craft passes directly over him, Jake tilts his head back. He's just staring up in pure wonder. The underside is smooth, featureless. No panels, seams, or rivets, like any aircraft he's ever seen. The blue-white light bathes his camp, his street bob, the Joshua trees, in an awkward glow. He can feel a strange pressure in his chest, like standing too close to a speaker at a heavy metal concert, except there's no sound. His skin prickles with static electricity, and the air on his arms starts to stand up. For a few seconds, maybe 5, maybe 20, time starts to feel stretched as the craft hovers directly over him, like it's looking at him, sizing him up, or making some kind of decision. Jake Wrench Sullivan, who survived Tora Bora and firefights with insurgents, feels small. Then the craft accelerates straight up. Instant vertical climb. No gradual speed increase. Gone in 2 seconds, leaving only the stars, silence, and Jake standing there with his mouth wide open. Jake continues to stand there for an entire minute, heart pounding, trying to process what just happened. In Afghanistan, weird shit happened all the time. Lights in the mountains, and a sound that didn't make any sense. But this was different. This was close, clear, and undeniable. He sits back down on his bedroll, reaches for his whiskey bottle with a hand that's actually shaking, takes a long pull straight from the bottle, feels the burn, and knows he needs it. His mind starts to run through all the different possibilities. Black budget military? But why would they test over public land? Chinese? Russians? Nothing any foreign military has moved like that. And he, of all people, would know. He thinks about calling someone. Club brothers, veterans from the 10th Mountain. But then he stops himself. What's he gonna say? I saw a UFO on a memorial ride? They think he was drunk on the road, and the code is clear anyways. What happens on the road stays on the road, especially on a solo memorial. Jake doesn't try to sleep again. He just sits up the rest of the night with his back to the Joshua tree, watching the sky. He's pulled plenty of night details in Afghanistan. He knows how to stay alert, scan sectors, and wait. The whiskey keeps him warm as the desert cold sets in, and the temperature starts to drop towards 50. He thinks about Cisco, wonders if his brother is somehow part of this, maybe sending him a message. Wonders if Cisco saw things like this before he died, out there on the road where strange things live. Around 3 a.m., a coyote finally calls in the distance. Then another, just a normal desert sound returning. The spell is broken. Reality is settling back in, but Jake knows what he saw. He's seen Apache gunships light up Taliban positions with Hellfire missiles and 30 Mike cannons. Watched Predator drones circle for hours. This wasn't that. This was something else entirely. Something that made military hardware look like kids' toys. Dawn comes slowly. The sky starts to turn from black to gray to that pale desert blue, and Jake's still watching. By 6 a.m., Jake packs his bedroll, kicks sand over the dead fire, and erases evidence that he was there. He straps everything on the back of his street bob and checks his route. Another 200 miles to Lawland, then home. He fires up the Harley with that familiar V-twin rumble, breaking the morning silence, grounding him back to the real world. He pulls his colors back, the patches on his back meaning something different now after last night. Brotherhood, loyalty, and secrets kept. This code covers more than just club business. He rides east into the rising sun. Highway 95 is empty and straight ahead. He stops for breakfast at a truck stop outside Needles and sits in a corner nursing coffee. An old gear jammer named Fred asks him if he's okay. You look like you've seen a ghost, man. Jake almost laughs and says something like that as he starts to walk out, back on the street bob, rolling toward home, and Jake knows he'll never talk about what he saw. not to the club, not to anyone, because some things you carry with you alone, like Tora Bora, like losing brothers, like the night in the desert showed him that the universe is bigger and stranger than even war ever taught him. The story is between him, Cisco's memory, and the endless Mojave sky. The Archaeologist, Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, September 1952. Dr. Henry Morrison parks his dusty 1947 Willys Jeep behind the crumbling wall of the Pueblo Bonito just as the September sun begins its descent toward the western mesa. He's 38 and an archaeologist from the University of Arizona, spending his sixth field season documenting the astronomical alignments of the ancient ancestral Puebloan structures. This isn't a formal campground. There's no such thing out here in 1952. Just him, the ruins, and 50 miles of empty New Mexico desert in every direction. Hank, as he's called by his friends, climbs out stiffly, removes his black horn-rimmed glasses to wipe the dust from the lenses, and settles his worn fedora back on his head. Hank is dressed in khaki field clothes, leather boots, and a vest with too many pockets. He looks more like a professor than an adventurer, which is exactly what he is. No ranger station here, no permits required, just the occasional Navajo shepherd passing through, and the ruins themselves. He's been alone for 3 days, documenting petroglyphs and measuring solar alignments with his transit and compass. Hank sets up his canvas wall tent with practiced efficiency, arranges his cot, field journals, and removes his master mason ring and places it on his portable typewriter. Hank is a member of his local Masonic lodge. This is his sanctuary, away from the department politics and the colleagues who think studying primitive astronomy is a waste of time. Out here among the ancient stones, Dr. Morrison feels he's doing great work that matters, connecting with people who watched these skies over 900 years ago. Hank sets up his equipment as the light begins to fade. A Kodak Brownie Hawkeye camera, a leather-bound field journal, and drafting tools spread on his folding table. He's particularly interested in a series of spiral petroglyphs on the canyon wall that seem to align with the autumn equinox, which is just 2 weeks away. The ancient Puebloans were sophisticated astronomers. Their buildings align with solstices, and their petroglyphs track celestial events. He believes they were recording more than just the sun and moon, perhaps planetary movements, maybe even comets. Hank lights his pipe, filled with the gentleman's blend of tobacco, the same blend his father smoked, and watches the sky begin its evening color show. The canyon walls turn from tan to orange to a deep red as the sun drops. Temperature is falling quickly. Desert September evenings are still pleasant, mid-60s by sunset. He makes his coffee in an old percolator on his Coleman camp stove, pours a cup, and sits in the canvas chair. He opens his field journal to make notes about the day's measurements. His fountain pen scratches across the paper in his careful academic script. Complete silence except for the occasional call of a cannon wren and the soft hiss of his Coleman lantern. By 7:30 p.m., the first stars start to appear. Venus is bright from the west, and Jupiter is rising in the east. Hank has been an amateur astronomer since childhood. He knows the constellations as well as the Puebloan ruins. This is why he's drawn to archaeoastronomy. It's a marriage of his two passions, ancient cultures and celestial mechanics. He's read about the flying saucer reports, especially the Kenneth Arnold sighting in 1947 and the Roswell incident that same summer. More recently, the Washington, D.C. sighting this past July. The radar contact and visual sightings cover the capital. As a scientist, he's skeptical but curious. He feels that there are too many credible witnesses to dismiss entirely. His colleague and brother Mason, Dr. Smith, at the university, thinks it's a mass hysteria. He says it's Cold War propaganda that is making people see Soviet aircrafts everywhere. This makes Hank wonder, The Puebloans recorded light in the sky, strange phenomena, things that didn't seem to fit their understanding. He's found petroglyphs that look remarkably like spiral discs, symbols that might represent something they witnessed. Hank finishes his coffee, taps out his pipe, and decides to take one more look at the spiral drawings before the cave is covered in complete darkness. He is studying a particular spiral carving on the cannon wall when he catches movement in his peripheral vision. He turns, squints without his glasses for a moment, then quickly puts them on. There above the mesa rim, perhaps a mile away, an object reflects from the last rays of sunset. It seems to be metallic, catching the faded orange light like a polished chrome. His first thought is an aircraft. Maybe it's the aircraft out of Kirkland Air Force Base in Albuquerque. But the shape is wrong. Not a plane, nor a helicopter, but a circular-shaped disc. This object isn't moving like an aircraft. It's hovering, completely stationary above the mesa. Hank fumbles for his binoculars, an old military-issued pair he purchased from an army surplus store. He focuses on the object, and his breath starts to catch in his throat. It's a disc, a perfect metallic disc, with what happens to be a dome on top, just like the flying saucers in the newspapers. Dr. Morrison's scientific training takes over, observing, documenting, and recording details systematically. Through the binoculars, the object is clearly visible against the dark sky. This disc-shaped object, he estimates, is about 40 to 50 feet in diameter, with a metallic surface that is reflecting twilight. There is a dome on top, perhaps 10 feet high, that is smooth and seamless with a body. The craft is rotating, slowly spinning clockwise, maybe one revolution every 10 seconds. The sound grows slightly louder, low humming, like an electrical transformer or a generator. The sound starts to increase as the object begins moving, drifting slowly south along the mesa rim. The craft is still hovering at the same altitude, perhaps 200 feet above the cannon floor. Hank runs to his tent, grabs his Kodak camera, and fumbles with the settings and the faded lights. He aims the camera at the object and clicks the shutter. He knows the light is probably too low, but he has to try. The disc stops its southward drift, hovering now directly above a flat section of mesa top, maybe half a mile from his camp. The humming sound increases in pitch, becoming almost musical, harmonic tones layering over each other. Then slowly, carefully, the object descends toward the mesa surface. Hank watches through the binoculars, heart pounding, scientific detachment giving away to our astonishment. Hank watches through the binoculars, heart pounding, scientific detachment giving away to his astonishment. The disc touches down gently on the mesa top, settling like a leaf landing on water. It sits there for perhaps 30 seconds, dome still visible, surface gleaming in the last twilight. Hank can see a glow emanating from the bottom edge, orange-red light illuminating the ground around it. The humming continues, steady and hypnotic, as it echoes off the cannon walls. Then, without warning, the humming rises to a high note. The disc lifts up sharply, rising at a steep angle, climbing fast towards the northeast, and within seconds, it's gone, disappearing into the dark sky. Hank stands frozen for a moment, trying to process what he just witnessed. Then his scientific mind engages evidence. He needs evidence to properly document this event. He grabs a flashlight, compass, and field journal and starts scrambling up the talus slope towards the mesa top. It's a hard climb in the darkness, loose rock, scraggly juniper, and his adrenaline pushing him forward. It takes him 20 minutes to reach the mesa top. He's sweating despite the cool evening. He points his flashlight across the ground, searching for the landing site of the aircraft, and there it is. Circular scorched earth, perhaps 35 feet in diameter. The ground is blackened, desert grass, and sage burned away completely. The soil is hard packed, and the center of the earth is still warm. He can feel the heat radiating when he holds his hand above it. Hank finds a small fragment of something metallic, paper thin, light as foil, but incredibly strong. This artifact won't tear or bend permanently. Henry works by flashlight, photographing the burned circle from multiple angles. Though he knows night photography is a gamble, with his camera. He stretches his sight in his field journal, measures the diameter with his tape measure, 36 feet and 8 inches. Hank collects 3 metallic fragments, wraps them carefully in his handkerchief, and labels the bundle with date and location entries. He takes the compass bearings to nearby landmarks and marks their exact locations for future reference. His hands are shaking as he writes, from the excitement, from the fear, and from the magnitude of what he's documenting. This could change everything. Finally, proof of something beyond conventional explanation. Or on the other hand, this could destroy his career. The university already thinks his work is marginal, and this could make him a complete laughingstock. He starts to think about Dr. Lincoln LaPaz at UNM, who investigated the green fireballs and was taken seriously. But LaPaz had military connections, government interests, and Henry is just one lone archaeologist with a fantastic story. He carefully packs his notes and samples, climbs back down to his camp as the stars emerge overhead. Hank doesn't want to sleep that night. He sits by his Coleman lantern, writing detailed observations in his journal. The time of the sighting was approximately 7:35 p.m. to 7:48 p.m. September 18th, 1952. The object is described as a disc-shaped craft, metallic surface, rotating, dome structure with assumed sound. The landing duration, he estimates, was about 30 seconds on the mesa top. He cross-references his notes with the Pueblan petroglyphs he's been studying. Those spirals suddenly take on a new meaning. What if the ancient people witnessed the same phenomenon? What if they recorded it the only way they could? Around 2 a.m., he walks back up to the mesa with his portable Geiger counter, a surplus war instrument he uses for dating ceramics. The counter starts to click faster near the burn site, elevating in radiation readings, not dangerously, but decently above the normal reading of the surrounding area. He takes readings at various points and maps out all the radiation in his journal. Hank returns to camp at dawn, exhausted but certain of what he witnessed, but uncertain about what he should do about it. By 7 a.m., Hank packs up his equipment, tent, typewriter, journals, and carefully wraps samples. He loads everything up into his Willis Jeep and takes one last look at the mesa top where the craft landed. The burn mark is clearly visible from here, a dark circle against the tan earth. He drives the rough dirt road of Chaco, heading back towards Albuquerque and the university. His mind starts to race through scenarios. Who should he tell? How should he report it? Should he even report it at all? Should he contact Project Blue Book? The Air Force is supposed to investigate these things, but can he really trust the military? His department head? Dr. Wheeler will probably demand that he take a sabbatical and question his mental state. The fragments in the photographs are evidence, but are they proof? Will anyone actually believe him? He decides to have the film developed first, analyze the samples, and document everything properly before deciding on what to do. As he drives east on Route 66, leaving the canyon behind, Dr. Henry Morrison knows that his life is divided into before and after last night. Before, he studied the ancient people who watched the skies. After, he became a watcher himself, carrying evidence of something the academic world isn't ready to accept. He wonders if the Pueblan spiral petroglyphs were never about the sun at all. They were about the visitors who came in the twilight, just as he saw them come for him. The Rancher, a remote ranch in West Texas, July 1947. James Gibson, or Bud as he's known, drives his 1941 Ford pickup down the ranch road at first light, tires still splashing through puddles from last night's thunderstorm. He's 32 and a cattle rancher who's worked for this 4,000-acre spread in West Texas his whole life. The same land his father from Pennsylvania worked before him. He's a Navy veteran from the Pacific Theater, served on destroyers as a chief warrant officer hunting Japanese submarines. He came home in '45 and went right back to ranching. It's July 5th, 1947, just 2 days after the 4th, and the summer heat is already brutal, even at 6 a.m. Last night's storm was a gully washer, a kind of flood arroyos and washes out the fence lines. That's why he's out here this early, checking the north pasture fences, making sure his Herefords didn't wander through breaks. His dog Scout, an old blue heeler, rides in the truck bed, ears up, always on alert. The desert smells clean after the rain. The scent of creosote and sage is heavy in the cool morning air. Bud is thinking about coffee and checking the fence before the heat gets unbearable. Then Scout starts barking, an urgent bark that means something's wrong. Something's out there. Bud stops the truck, climbs out, and follows Scout's frantic pointing toward the shallow arroyo about 200 yards north. Even from here he can see something scattered across the ground, glinting in the early sun. His first thought is of aircraft wreckage, maybe a military plane from the base of Roswell, 75 miles northeast. But he walks closer, boots crunching on the wet gravel. He realizes that this isn't like any aircraft debris he's seen. The Navy taught Bud what destroyed planes look like. He'd pull pilots from burning Wildcats after kamikaze attacks. This is different. Hundreds of pieces scattered across maybe half an acre. All of it strange, thin metallic material, like aluminum foil, but tougher. This material won't tear when he tries to break it. It looks like some sort of I-beams, lightweight like balsa wood, but won't break when he stomps on them. The markings are weird symbols, not English, Spanish, or any other language he recognizes. Scout won't go near the debris, whining, hanging back by Bud's heel. The dog knows something's wrong. Bud follows the debris trail down the arroyo, and that's when he sees it. The main fuselage, half buried in a sandy creek bed, partially hidden by a mesquite tree, knocked flat by impact. Dish shape, maybe 25 to 30 feet across, a metallic surface dull in the morning light. The craft is damaged. A section of the outer rim is crumpled, like it had hit hard and skidded across the creek bottom. No wings, no tail, and no engine that he can see. Nothing on this craft gives the impression that it could fly. The surface is smooth, seamless, with no rivets or welds visible anywhere. One section appears to have cracked open on impact, revealing the internal structure, a honeycomb pattern, and possibly light. Bud approaches slowly, every instinct from the war telling him to be careful and assess before he acts. The craft is silent, no hissing steam, no ticking of cooling metal, just silence and the morning breeze. He reaches out to touch it, and the metal is cool despite sitting in the desert, smooth as glass. As Bud's hand touches the hull, he hears something from the inside, a sound like clicking, mechanical in nature, but also rhythmic. He jerks his hands back, his heart starts to suddenly pound as his Navy training kicks in. The clicking continues, then stops, then starts again. There's a pattern to it all, almost like Morse code, but not quite. He circles the craft slowly, looking for an opening, a hatch, some way to see inside on the far side. He finds what might be a doorway, an oval opening, with smooth edges that's completely dark inside. He leans in carefully as his eyes adjust to the dim interior. He sees what appears to be seats or stations, small, built for someone maybe 4 feet tall. The panels are lined with symbols, lights not lit, and controls he can't begin to understand. The clicking sound is louder here, coming from somewhere deep within the craft. Bud backs away. Whatever it is, it's beyond him, beyond anything he knows. He suddenly wants his lever action Winchester Model 94 30-30 from his truck. Bud returns to his truck, grabs a canvas tarp from the bed, and starts collecting samples from debris. He figures he should start collecting evidence before calling anyone, proof of whatever this is. He picks up several pieces of foil-like material, rolls them into balls, and watches them slowly unfold back to the flat position they started in. He collects 3 of the I-beams with strange markings that are lightweight, as if they're hollow but solid feeling. Bud finds what looks to be a piece of the hull, maybe 2 feet across. The edges are melted and burned. He wraps everything in the tarp, loads it in the truck bed. Scout won't go near any of it. He checks his watch. 6:45 a.m. His wife, Mary Shad, will be wondering where he is with breakfast waiting. He could drive home, call the sheriff, and report this properly, but something tells him this is bigger than the county sheriff, bigger than any local could handle. This is most likely military, federal, or maybe something he shouldn't be involved in, but hell, it's on his land, so it's his problem now. By the time Bud drives back to the ranch house, there's already a convoy on the main road. 3 Dodge Power Wagon army trucks are headed in his direction. He hasn't called anyone yet, but somehow they know. Somehow they are already coming. Mary Shad meets him on the porch, with a worried look in her face. The army has been calling on the party line, asking about aircraft crashes. The convoy pulls into the yard within minutes. Soldiers pile out, and an officer approaches. Major Richards, as he introduces himself, asks about the wreckage with very specific questions. Bud tells him about the arroyo, the disc, and the strange materials. The major's face stays neutral and professional, but his eyes sharpen. "Show us, Mr. Gibson." Bud leads them back to the crash site in his truck. Major Richards is riding shotgun, and the army convoy follows. When they reach the arroyo, the soldiers immediately begin cordoning off the area, working fast and organized. The major walks to the disc and radios something Bud can't understand, then says to Bud, "We'll take it from here, sir." Within an hour, the site is swarming with military. More trucks, more tarps, and all sorts of equipment Bud has never seen before. They're loading the disc into the flatbed trailer, covering it completely, working with practiced efficiency. Other soldiers are collecting every piece of debris, sweeping the area like a crime scene, bagging up everything. A captain approaches Bud's truck. "Sir, we'll need whatever you collected," polite but firm. Bud hesitates, then hands over the tarp with the materials in it. The captain looks inside, nods, and signals 2 soldiers to take it away immediately. Then the questions start. Who else knows? Who has Bud told? Did he touch anything? What did he see inside the craft? Bud answers truthfully. It was just him. Mary Shad knows he found something, knows he touched it, and knows he looked inside. The captain makes notes. Then the conversational tone shifts. This becomes less about questions and more about instructions. "For security purposes, Mr. Gibson, we need you to understand that this is classified." Major Richards pulls Bud aside, away from the soldiers, and speaks to him quietly with authority. "What you found here is part of a classified military program. This is high-altitude research equipment." Bud knows that's not true. He saw something, but he also knows when to keep his mouth shut. "We appreciate your cooperation. You mustn't discuss this with anyone else outside your immediate family." The major pauses and makes eye contact. "This is a matter of national security, Mr. Gibson. The Soviets, you understand?" Bud nods slowly. He fought in the war. He understands security, and he understands orders. "Your wife, you can tell her it was just weather equipment. Training exercises went wrong, nothing more." The major's voice drops lower. "Newspapers might ask. Tell them nothing. Refer them to the base at Roswell." Bud feels the weight of it. They're not asking. They're telling him. Polite, but firm about it. "Understood, sir," Bud says. "Because that's what you say to officers even after the war." By noon, the site is empty. No debris, no evidence that anything was ever out there. The military convoy rolls up, leaving only disturbed ground and tire tracks in the wet sand. Bud stands in the arroyo where the craft has been. He finds nothing, not even a scrap of foil. They were thorough, professional, like nothing ever happened. He drives back to the ranch. Scout is finally calm now that the strange materials are gone. Mary Shad has lunch waiting as she asks what the army wanted and what he found. "Weather balloon," he tells her, repeating Major's story about Project Mogul. High-altitude equipment that came down in the storm. She looks at him long and hard, knows her husband, and knows when he's not telling the whole truth. But she doesn't push him. She was a Navy wife during the war, and she understands that some things you just can't talk about. They ate lunch in silence, the radio playing in the background. News about the 4th of July celebrations carrying on as normal. That evening, Bud starts to draft one of his letters on his Smith Corona Sterling 4A typewriter. Letters that the Las Cruces Sun often publishes about his political opinions. Mary Shadd joins him, brings some coffee, and sits in the chair beside him. Was it really a weather balloon? She asks quietly. Bud starts to think about the clicking sounds, the strange symbols, and how the craft was clearly not designed for humans. No, he finally says, because he won't lie to her. Not directly. She nods. Are you going to tell anyone? Major said not to. National security. Soviets may have been involved somehow. They sit in silence as time passes on the oak Drayton house clock, or grandfather clock as many know it now. A few days later, Bud reads in the Roswell newspaper about a flying disc recovered, then how the article was immediately retracted to a weather balloon as the official explanation. James Bud Gibson folds the newspaper, adds another mesquite log into the wood stove, and never speaks of that morning again. Not to his neighbors, not to the reporters when they come asking years later, not even to 7 of his children, because some promises made to officers stick with you, and some mysteries the government decides to keep. Sometimes a man who's seen war knows when to hold his tongue, even when holding his tongue means carrying the weight of an impossible morning in July 1947, alone for the rest of his life. Bud still looks off into the desert, wondering if one day the quiet visitors will ever come back. The desert keeps its secrets. 7 witnesses, 7 encounters, 7 nights when the ordinary become extraordinary. A teacher in 1978, a trucker in 1985, a photographer in 2012, an agent in 2015, a biker in 2019, an archaeologist in 1952, and a rancher in 1947. Decades apart, different lives, different corners of the desert, but all of them looked up at the same vast sky or down at the same mysterious earth and saw something that changed them forever. Some of these witnesses are still out there, still watching the skies. Some have passed on, taking their memories with them. Most never spoke publicly about what they saw. They carried it quietly, the way you carry any profound experience that the world isn't ready to understand. The evidence they collected, fragments that wouldn't tear, photographs too dark to provide anything, radiation readings slightly above normal, video footage that skeptics can dismiss, remains inconclusive. The burn marks on the ground have long since faded. The debris was confiscated or locked away in desk drawers. The reports were filed away or never filed at all. But the desert remembers. The same desert where ancient people carved spirals that might have been more than just astronomical markers. The same desert where test pilots pushed the boundaries of flight and sometimes saw things that weren't in any manual. The same desert that stretches vast and empty under skies so dark you can see the curve of the Milky Way. So quiet you can hear your own heartbeat. On clear nights, when the stars are thick and the air is still, the desert continues to watch, as it has for thousands of years, as it will for thousands more. The science teacher still looks up when he's camping. Even though he's retired now, the truckers still key their CB radios when they see strange lights, though fewer people listen these days. The photographer kept those video files, backed up in 3 places, just in case anyone ever wants to see them. The Border Patrol agent never told his colleagues, but he watches the sky differently on night shifts. The biker pours one out for Cisco under the stars and wonders if his brother sent him a message that night. The archaeologist's fragments remain in a box in his basement, wrapped carefully in a handkerchief, labeled with a date no one else would understand. And the rancher's widow sometimes looks at the place where the mesquite tree was knocked flat, where the arroyo held something impossible, and she knows her husband carried the weight alone because he promised an officer he would. Whether you believe these accounts or not, they're part of the desert story now, part of our story. Reminders that the universe is larger and stranger than we can fully comprehend, that sometimes in the loneliest places, we encounter something that humbles us, that makes us small, that makes us wonder. The quiet visitors, if that's what they are, come in different forms across the decades. Triangles and discs or orbs of light, silent or humming, hovering or crashed. Some seem to observe, some seem to be in trouble. All of them defied physics we thought we understood. And they might come again. So when you're out in the desert, camping under the stars, driving long empty highways, watching the sunset paint the mesas gold, keep your eyes open. Pay attention to the silence. Notice when the coyotes stop calling. Watch for lights that move in ways lights shouldn't move. You might see something, you might not. But if you do, you'll understand why these 7 people and the countless others like them chose to carry their experiences quietly, why they didn't need anyone to believe them. Why was the encounter itself enough? The desert is still out there, vast and patient, and full of mysteries we haven't solved. The skies are still dark enough to see forever, and the quiet visitors, wherever they come from, whatever they were, might be watching us now. Thank you for listening to Dark Sky Dossier. Sleep well, dream deep, and keep watching the skies.